GPT-5. Another one is uh another one is GPT-5. Another one is Grok uh, or Flux. Flux is also a really powerful one. So over here you can see us testing it out with the skyline of Nairobi. And over here, we can use any one of the prompts that have been shared. Anyone that wants to throw in one, let's make it architectural first before we get to the gunners. Anyone wants a prompt that you would want us to investigate so that I can show you how it works? Throw in something creative into the chat. Anything coming, Brian? Let me try Mary's. Create a sketch of a similar street view in Nairobi. Okay. Okay. So Mary's is has a double entendre. Okay. Okay. Oh wow. Quite a few have come in. Okay, let's start with the easy ones. Let's try this one. And then I'll come back to Mary's because it's also very interesting. Highbury in 2165. Or an iconic office tower in Nairobi with a reference to Maasai culture. I like that one as well. Let's start with that one. So the thing about fall.ai is you can type it in, we can put it there. You can also use a reference image. That reference image can produce can guide your style, can guide exactly what you want to do. Um, this one. Okay. Sorry, just 1 minute. World is having a few problems. Okay, I think I'll have to come back to this. I think I need to refresh my APIs. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. I think I've had these pages open for just a bit too long. So sometimes it creates a few problems, but I think we're back on track. Let's try it out. So these are the models I've selected. Everyone knows OpenAI with the powerful GPT model. We also have for Nano Banana 2, that's by Google. We have Grok. Grok is Elon's company. And then we have Flux. Flux is really powerful and also very, very affordable. So what you do is you run it. And you can see over here, it keeps a track of your cost. Costs are pretty cheap. The alternative process would be to go into each one of these models, pay a subscription fee, and then wait to get feedback on each one of them. But you can see how fast it gets everything done. So I've tested already. These are 4 different models just to see the output. And you can immediately see that there's some interesting results. I would love to hear from the audience. What are your thoughts? What do you think? Is it African? Is it not African? Because this one looks interesting, but also you see there's some interesting things here as well in that you can see the Nairobi skyline in the background. But then again, you have this glass, uh, interesting. I was about to call it a monstrosity, but and maybe that is a reflection of what Nairobi is. You have a lot of glass buildings. Not particularly ideal, but it also shows what the training set has in with regards to what it considers Nairobi. Any thoughts on this? Which one speaks to you? Which one is Nairobi to you?
I think Nano Banana is doing a good job because of the context, because of
Okay,
it's context aware.
I like that. I like that feedback. Good. Any additional thoughts? Okay. As you're thinking about that, you can see GPT is also taking a bit of time. It means that the pipeline might be a bit longer for that one. I've seen Gerald from Tired Architects has added a really interesting, create a detailed sketch of Nairobi river blending, urban development with natural scenery. Okay, let's put it in. So you see it's a live demo. Yeah. You can see it's running. And it's very cheap as you can see. If we had gone to buy subscriptions for each and every one of these, Google will charge you $20. Elon with his Grok will charge you another $20. Everyone will charge you, money. And it becomes expensive really quickly. Okay, so this is from Gerald's prompt, and you can see we have some really interesting results on this one. Over here, I can see Gerald. Did you know that Gerald, I've seen you from Trad. Did you know that a Trad designed building will be in one of the images? I like that. You can see Britam Towers is right there, very immaculate. Maybe not in the right place in Nairobi, and Nairobi River doesn't look like this, but very, very interesting submission there. You can see over here with Grok. Grok has shown us. I don't think there's anything that's necessarily Nairobi about it. Um, and also, if you look at Flux, Flux looks interesting, but also nothing also necessarily Nairobi about it. It's pretty generic. So the point for this particular tool is the more specific you are, the better. And the another additional thing is that your prompt can have a negative prompt. This is a really powerful thing. You can specify that I do not want to see this in this image. I do not want to see this, and I want to see more of this. So if there's a road in your image, I do not want to see that. You can specify that. I can see GPT is still taking quite a bit of time. So, but over here, it finally completed GPT. Very interesting things. The the coat of arms is there, lots of African patterns. Can also see a rendition of KICC in the background over here, and a couple of I don't know what the building that is. Maybe something that was coming close to Barclays, the former Barclays building in the background. But you can see there are a lot of really interesting options that you can get. And these are only four models that we've tried. You can see how many more there are. So you have an abundance of options. There's so many things you can try and you can get so many interesting results. So that's the power of four. So what I would ideally, just going back to the presentation, what somebody would ideally do is they will start off with training their own model on their own sketches and then bring it to fall. On fall, you can test out different models to refine that sketch. So you're essentially making it machine ready. And some guidelines with regards to the use of fall is you have to keep prompts structural, though this isn't absolutely necessary. Nowadays, when you're typing in a prompt, the AI essentially knows exactly what you do. It has a layout that reinterprets what you're doing. Call out materials and light. So specify if you want wood, put in wood there. If you want concrete, put in concrete there. And do iterative batches. Sometimes you have to do it several times before you get the results that you want. Um, I've seen a comment there. A prompt formula that particularly works for me is number like this. You will specify the layout move, the materials, the lighting, the camera, the mood, and then finally the LoRa token. So essentially, do you want it to be presented in a particular LoRa path? And then moving on to the next one. Are there any questions?
Yes, there's a good one which
Yeah.
from Onyoyo, which says, He's asking about iterating. So design is iterative. Kindly show how these tools iterate and pivot from what it has generated.
No, absolutely. That's a really wonderful question, Onyoye. And I mean, that's essentially how these tools have been designed. That you're essentially supposed to iterate several different times, and you can iterate using different things through the settings or through your own approach. So you can see, for example, this is with the prompt that Gerald gave us. It's just finished with ChatGPT. What you would ideally do is that first you will start off with what he started off with the sketches. Once you've gotten to this particular point where you've trained a model and you've generated an image that you like and you bring it here, you will play around with these settings, play around with the models, play around with the weights, play around with the biases. You can use reference images. You can play around with the aspect ratios. Very key thing, the results can vary greatly depending on the aspect ratio that you choose. In some scenarios, for example, if you have a building that, for example, a, a very tall building, if you choose an aspect ratio, like for example, 7:4, your results are going to be vastly different from a 4:3 aspect ratio. And these tools are essentially designed to help you with that. Just to show you some of the examples that I was going through, these are some of the projects I was working on. Um, Now, this is my personal account, but also on my work account, it goes into the thousands. The anticipation is that you should be iterating again and again and again, and you're starting from the sketch, bringing it into AI so that AI enhances your work. And we'll see even more of that. Now, next, we would want to add a bit of motion. And with that, we use this really powerful tool called Kling AI. Kling AI animates your renders. So once you've decided, okay, I want to see Nairobi, actually let's use one of the images that we've created. Any pickers, anyone that you would want us to animate, please vote. Shall we go with this one, this one, this one, this one? Any one of these other four?
Any suggestions in the chat?
Any suggestions? Which one is the closest to Nairobi?
Someone says GPT, Masai,
Masai,
Tower.
Masai Tower. So this one.
No,
Okay.
I think it's talking about the towers.
This one, I presume,
Yes,
not the
that
one
one.
on the skeleton. Okay. Charity wants the nano banana one. Any one of these works. Okay. So let's download it. I will take it in. I'll just put it in our AK folder here. And the power of Kling is that once you have your images, you can animate them. Initially, the process was that once you have your renders, first you'll have to get all the 3D objects, put them
Mm.
onto a scene, and then start animating from that. That process absolutely took so much time, and you also couldn't do it on the cloud. Cloud resources were very limited and were unbelievably expensive. But now you can do it in literal seconds. So, for example, this was an image of a skyline of Nairobi, lo looking in from Uhuru Park, of course, with a bit of water and a fountain there. Um, this was for a project that I was working on where essentially I wanted to show, people getting into the space, how it will feel like. So you can animate things like the birds, the movement of water, the movement of the leaves. This was a project proposal that I was working on uh, while I was at MIT. And you can see over here, the goal was essentially to show that it is in a semi-arid place, but there is life. People are coming in, they're walking in. You can see some people in the background, there's movement in the background. It just adds some element of life. It goes beyond a static render. And just going back to the image that we have chosen, here it is. Might take a few seconds. And my pages have been a bit static for a while, so let me refresh. Uh, so we can add a prompt for this particular tile. One prompt would be, for example, so unfortunately this image doesn't have a lot of vegetation, but we could add something like, for example, a lively city with people walking on the streets and birds flying in the air. And you can do a number of different things. You can play around with transformations. You can add other videos that you would want it to reference, can throw them in there, can add other images that you would want it to reference and the likes. So this will start the generation process. Sometimes it takes a bit of time depending on how busy the servers are and how heavy the request is as well. But you can see it's already working on it. Also very affordable as well. This one takes, I think, around maybe 100 Kenya shillings per iteration. So very affordable. Now, the thing is, you might not get the result you want immediately. And that's to Onyoyo's point that you'll want to, it's an iterative process. You'll want to try several things before you decide, okay, this is the thing I want to go for. So that might end up eating a bit into your budget, but not too much. So as this one is working in the background, we can move on to the next one. Yeah, this is a set of guidelines on how you would want to establish uh, how you would want to go about iterating so that the image or the video that you're generating is comprehensive. So establishing the room, do slow pushing, material detail, very important. And also as a director, you want a hero angle. Really, really important. You want it to end memorably. So, and essentially you're doing these things. You're setting the mood, you're showing the layout, you're showing the craft, and then ending memorably. We'll come back to that. And then for this particular section, I'd like to wrap up with this one. This is the one I told you about that was absolutely exciting and really interesting to me. This one is called Marble. Now, Marble is a startup that's based in San Francisco in Silicon Valley. In my previous company, I had a chance to essentially work with some of the things that they're doing. So the interesting thing about Marble is that you can create real worlds and environments. And this is something that's been going on quite a bit. Google released its own iteration of this, where you create your own world. And for any architect I know, this is absolutely exciting because you're going from thinking about something. You can go from thinking about it all the way until navigating in it within the span of seconds. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing. These are things that, I didn't even think were possible 5 years ago, and they really weren't possible 5 years ago. The computational needs were absolutely astronomical. So just to show you what I mean, what you will do is once you've gotten the images that we generated from fall, and you want some level of immersion in the work that you're doing, I would upload my image here. Yeah. Once I've uploaded it, it generates this environment. And in this environment, you can navigate. Yeah. This is, I mean, it might seem like something very simple, but this is a tremendous, a Herculean computational task. You can literally go from a sketch all the way to a navigable world within a matter of minutes. Something that was really, really difficult to do. Even just 2 years ago, it wasn't a particularly easy thing. This is another example. Let's have a look. And you can edit things within it. So, and just, I think I really like what Onyema was saying because it is an iterative process. So once you've generated different images and you started to make decisions on your design, essentially you'll have different images, different settings. I know that This is how I want my fenestration to look like. This is how I want the staircase to interact with the living space. You can upload several images and it'll stitch them together to generate an experience like this. And in this scenario, when you're meeting with your clients, what you could do is you could also get a virtual reality headset so that the client can appreciate the space. We're all designers, we appreciate the space even from plan. But for people who don't necessarily have a design background, it can be very difficult to visualize. So with a VR headset, you can really just navigate. You can look at how the environment will be. How do those spaces interact? What about the material choices? Are they legible? Are they logical? Do they enhance the experience that you want? Um, yeah, I mean there's many, many different things, and you can even go very. So this is, for example, something very industrial. Um, and I want you to also appreciate the fact that this literally takes seconds to generate. Um, if this was being done, and I'm doing it through a server, so and I mean my internet connection is also not particularly great as well. So the fact that it's generating it this fast shows you how tremendously powerful it is. You can literally go from the sketches that we started off a few minutes ago all the way until this within just a matter of seconds. It should also show you some things that are maybe even more whimsical. Just to show you how powerful it is. It doesn't necessarily have to be architectural. Let's look at this, for example. And this uses a technique called Gaussian splatting. Really, really powerful computational technique that is essentially used to measure how particles will interact with light. Very, very powerful. This one is a bit more fuzzy, more dreamlike, and that's what the author wanted. Yeah. So almost wrapping up this section, but let's go back to our cling that was essentially being generated. Okay, so it's done a 5 second generation, you see? So it's decided, okay, I'm going to make it cinematic. So it's going to pivot all the way from the back. It's added people to the scene. You can see it's added cars that are moving. It's added trees. It's added the birds there, a bit of clouds. This is just 5 seconds. You can do significantly longer plays, yeah? And you can also stitch them together so that you can make it a very comprehensive short film. Um, Now, before I go into my last section, any comments? Just a couple of best practices. What the client receives. Number one is a still render. Number two is a motion clip, and number three is a navigable world. And then finally, some best practices. Train on work that genuinely represents your taste, so that it's not the AI speaking, it's you speaking. Keep proportion, circulation, and joinery believable. Treat AI outputs as options, not final specifications. Protect confidential plans and client imagery. Absolutely crucial. You don't want your clients, you don't want to train a model on any construction documents. Just preferably stick to the sketches, things that you own. Yeah. And then validate the buildability before anything is approved. And before I go into my last section, any questions there? I know we've gone through a lot, and there's so many interesting things out there. I mean, absolutely mind-blowing. These are just some of the few that I decided to show. Any questions, any thoughts? It'll be good to hear from people. I know it's after lunch and it's almost home time, but yeah, any feedback would be appreciated. I can see a question has just popped in.
Can the output be edited outside AI?
Oh, good question. Good question. To some extent, to a large extent, yes. And there are a lot of tools that give you a good level of granularity in how you would edit things. So for example, you can take any one of the images that you generated, and take it to Photoshop
Mhm.
and then edit it from there. There's also Adobe Firefly, which is AI first. So it's particularly trained and used for editing AI images. So you do have a lot of power and autonomy with that.
Yeah. So that was
Uh,
from Bella.
yeah,
We have another question from Shireen Din.
yeah.
Um, so he says, so basically whatever is generated on these AI platforms will not be owned by the author.
That's a powerful question. Thank you so much, Shireen, for that. And thank you for asking that. I know a lot of people might not necessarily be thinking about that, but it is absolutely correct. You cannot patent, you can't own anything that is AI generated. You can't claim a copyright because the models are essentially trained on on publicly available data. So it's a coagulation or coalescement of billions of data points. So no single individual can essentially say that they own the things that they produce.
But what does this
Now,
mean to architecture now? Because
I mean, it's an evolving conversation. Even in the US, I know I had a chance to meet a lawyer who was in deep litigation with one of the gigantic AI labs. What this means for architecture going forward, I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not an attorney, so I won't even claim that to say that I know. But it's very interesting, and I hope architects start to also speak up as well. I think we play a significant role um, in how imagery is formed. We have our own language of communication through our drawings, and our drawings also hold a lot of legal information as well. So I
yeah,
think these are some of the conversations we really do have to start having very early on. But really, really good questions. Any more questions before I got into my last section? And then I'll hand it over to our colleague.
we have one more from
Yeah,
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey
So
K.
how far are the current AI models from generating functional architectural floor plans?
Oh man, they started I think 2 or 3 years ago, and that's actually they can generate really decent plans. And we'll actually have a look at the one I helped in the model I helped in building. I worked on the pre-training for that particular model. And it was surprisingly very good. You could go from, we'll talk about it in just a minute. In just
Yeah.
literally 1 minute. Jeffrey, good question. In just 1 minute, we'll address it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, in the interest of time, I think I'll jump into it. So, for this next portion, I'd like for us to talk about um, the portion after schematic design, and I'll only focus on two case studies. So this is something that happened in Colorado in the US. This was a general contractor who was upset with number one, the payment schedule, and number two, the client was upset that the bathroom renovation that the contractor was working in wasn't done to specification. Some of the materials she chose were not applied. So what did the contractor do? Came in with a sledgehammer and absolutely started demolishing absolutely everything. He said he had stuck to the contract. He said he had stuck to the specifications, and then this happened. And I know this is okay, nothing this extreme, but things like this are not uncommon. Yeah, where there is a disagreement between the contractor and the client, and you as the architect or the designer have to mitigate. And a lot of that, a lot of this usually stems from a variety of things. One way AI is being used to address this is in specifications. There is a method called LiDAR. All your phones have LiDAR sensors. And well, essentially with LiDAR, you can get a tremendous amount of accuracy. So you can see, unfortunately, the video is buffering quite a bit, but essentially is being done here is essentially you can scan a room and get a tremendous amount of detail on the room specifications, the heights, the nooks and crannies of that particular space. And what technologists, particularly at Autodesk, are thinking of is how can we go from um, real world context all the way until a fine detail of specification for existing objects or this for existing objects on site. How can you bridge the gap between the as built and what is also existing on the drawings and as built? Very, very interesting and also difficult question. Some estimates, McKinsey put it out that this is a $1 trillion gap in the industry. $1 trillion. So there's a gigantic opportunity in how the AI tools are being used to address this in particular. And we have the power with tools that are literally in our pockets. 90% of our phones have LiDAR sensors, and we have really powerful apps that can essentially help you go from uh, something that would have essentially taken you three people with tape measures and a whole afternoon to measure can now be done in just a matter of seconds. So really, really powerful. And now to answer just Jeffrey's question and just to wrap up as well. So this was the project I was working on. This is for the company called Hayek. Hayek is a company based in Silicon Valley. It's growing tremendously well. Raised around $70 million, valued at slightly over $500 million. And that client's base is particularly material suppliers and also home builders. Home builders are developers slash contractors in the US who work on different kinds on residential homes in particular. So ideally, in this section of the presentation, if we had this meeting in person, what I would have done is I would have requested somebody to sketch a plan. Yeah, so you will start off by sketching a plan on paper, and then we will go from there. So these are some plans that I already had. What I will do is I will just essentially upload this plan and start off from there. What it does automatically is it realizes that number one, the drawing might not be scaled. So it starts off by scaling the drawing. Yeah, really, really powerful. It's already done that. It also goes ahead and starts generating the rooms from that particular plan. Yeah, so over here you can see it's done with the scaling. It's starting to generate the rooms. I've created a view over here. Let's give it a minute. And even as it continues, the scaling component is something that will take quite a bit of time. But over here, what it does is it essentially treats the dimension parameters from the drawing. And even if you don't have drawings, it uses the references. So it knows the size of a door and then uses that to scale. Okay. It's generating the rooms. You can see that it is. So I've literally gone from a 2D plan. And you can do this even with a sketch. Even with a very, very normal, very basic sketch. It'll go from literally that all the way until generating the rooms. There's nothing I'm doing. It's literally all within this AI agent over here. Just give it a minute. We're almost there. You can see it's already starting to populate it with furniture. And then it's generating the roof as well. You can see the roof on the shadow. I'm hiding the roof layer just so that we can see how the generation happens. And then it's also doing specifications as well. Well, what are the materials likely to be in these rooms? And the likes. So you can also adjust the sizes of the room. So for example, I can say bedroom one should be a bit larger because it's the master bedroom. Let's see how it handles that. Oh, sorry, I didn't put in bedroom one, but bedroom one. So you see, it already knows that I didn't specify what bedroom it should be. So I'll specify bedroom one. And you also, it's asking for the specification. A specific design, can see over here, it's saying, how much larger should it be? You can go with a fixed amount. You can say 2 feet wider. You can see it's adjusted it. What it did was it identified that it can't expand to other rooms. It can't expand in this direction and this the other direction, so it expands out. We can also specify for it, and this is a fully scaled model with a lot of information. So for example, you can see over here, um, I'm hiding the window layer, but you can see all the furniture is inside. There are material specifications, and then we can do renders directly from this terminal. So you can see over there, that's with the roof. And just to add a bit more context as well, this is a fully scaled model. So it has everything, including material structures. For example, insulation, because this is a tool particularly designed in the US, but you can also contextualize it for here in Kenya. And the powerful thing about it is you can get details on. So you can see you've gone literally from a 2D plan all the way until a render with just a couple of prompts. And every aspect of this building is accounted for. So the costing for materials, its location, the structural materials, the finishes, they're all accounted for. So you can also do costing through this as well. And with that, I think I'd like to wrap up. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for listening to me. There's so much more I could share, but I know we only had an hour. And I mean, it would be wonderful to also get some comments and feedback from the chat, and any questions whatsoever as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We welcome any questions. We'd like to invite as many questions as possible from the chat. Maybe my own personal question is, what does this mean for QSs, drawing detailers, technical guys who do technical drawing? What does this mean for them?
No, I don't think it'll necessarily change anything about how they work. It'll change how they work, but it won't necessarily replace them. A couple of obvious limitations is that the drawing that I uploaded was a residential plan. So so this particular tool is essentially designed for residential homes. Could it be designed for things like commercial offices, um, commercial and retail spaces? Possibly, but we're still not there yet. And also the data is tremendously sparse and also very difficult to get a hold of so that you can train a model on those commercial spaces. And there's also a lot of nuance to how buildings are built. So once you get to a particular site, you realize there's so many things you hadn't factored in. So this is a really wonderful tool if you're doing initial estimation. Once you hit the ground, of course, there are things that are going to change, and that's where the value of the technicians comes in. The value of people who've been doing this for a long time comes in. So it's a tool to enable them to do their work even better and more effectively.
Okay, it seems we don't have any more questions. So thank you very much. We'd like to move on to our next speaker from HiCAD. So our next speaker is architect Ruchika Jaga. Architect Ruchika is founder and director of HiCAD Africa. HiCAD, if you haven't heard of it before, Ruchika will give us a good background of HiCAD. So welcome, Ruchika. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Brian. Let me share my screen quickly. Seems a bit. No. 1 second. Yeah. It seems I was so engrossed with the Geoffrey's presentation that I forgot that I'm the one next presenting here. And it was quite fascinating. Even I didn't want him to stop there. And it was super interesting. Okay, but as promised, I had to be here. So our topic, what we thought of, definitely it was a very good presentation. Thank you, Geoffrey, for that. Very eye-opening and insightful for us. Now, we being local partners or local entity here, and so we are currently in the space of AEC industry. I'm an architect Ruchika. I also did my master's in BIM. We are running a BIM consultancy firm here. So our topic for today is the future of Kenya's AEC industry, BIM-driven digital transformation, and national BIM adoption strategy. I hope I'm loud and clear, Brian?
Yes, very loud and very clear. Not very loud.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I'll go very quickly through these ones so that we can talk more of about the BIM, what we are doing for the BIM in Kenya construction industry. So about HiCAD, we run a BIM consultancy firm for since 2013. So it will be 13 years this year. And we help the AEC companies, industry drive value through the application of BIM on the projects and within their organization. We are also partnered with BIM Africa. We are technology partners with Autodesk, Tekla, SketchUp, Leica Geosystems for 3D scanners, which provide the best tools to implement BIM. Training and certification, we are authorized training and certification center. So the 10+ industry experience, skilled and certified instructors and technical support, 1,000+ professional trainings we have conducted so far in last 13 years, serving 7 East African countries. As I mentioned, we are partnered with Autodesk, Tekla, Trimble, ZWK, SketchUp, Leica, BIM Africa. Number of projects have been done. We have provided technology. We have trained on technology. We have trained on BIM. We have implemented BIM to a number of the AEC companies. We have worked with government, parastatals, private firms. I can see some of the names there who are our customers in the seminar webinar today here. So I'm sure you know us well there. So here, regarding, 1 second, my screen seems, okay. The future of construction will not be defined by building alone, but how information is created, managed, and used throughout the project life cycle. So by 2050, we are expecting 10 billion people in cities and 70% will go in cities. What does it take? Rapid urbanization, we need smart cities, digital infrastructures to be looked at, productivity challenges, sustainability demands, AI and automation growth, as Geoffrey explained. if we look at the macro trends, what we are looking at, it's the globalization, urbanization, climate change, COVID-19 came, industry trends, project complexity, labor shortages, industry consolidation. So we know that increased demand will be there, and we need the better outcomes to support. What does it take for our industry? Second. We all understand what does it bring to us? The time pressure, the complexity, and look at the scale. So over 85% of major construction programs fail to meet the cost and 93% schedule targets. 30% of construction cost is rework, 55% maintenance remains reactive. And I think that you all will agree to that. Okay, somehow my screen is, okay, I think this is, okay. Need for digital transformation in Kenya's AEC, current key industry challenges, what we have gathered from where we sit, and I'm sure you all architects, whether you are professionals or students, you have come across with these challenges as well in our region. Fragmented project delivery, traditional 2D workflows, poor design coordination and interdisciplinary clashes, delayed approvals, lengthy review process, rework costs and inefficiencies, information loss across project phases, poor lifecycle data management, resistance to change and digital transformation, perceived high cost of technology adoption. Now it all looks like the real problems, right? When I was listening Geoffrey's presentation, I'm coming from the hand drawing. When I did architecture, we did the hand drawings, and then in final year, I think did the project on AutoCAD. And of course, we are in Kenya and having these challenges in terms of the workflows, in terms of fragmentation, in terms of collaboration, digital transformation. And it's so wonderful to see where he was leading to when you can see the AI, how it's incorporating with our architectural workflow. So the question is, again, my screen is very... Can Kenya build future cities using yesterday's workflows? No, definitely not. Where to move this? Okay, global digital transformation of AEC, where we are industry evaluation for us in AEC industry. Manual drafting was there. We moved to CAD, 3D modeling, BIM, we know where we are. We are talking about digital twins and AI-enabled project delivery. That's what Geoffrey even touched a bit, that how it will help or enable traditional document standards. Then we moved to CAD-based documentation standards, project-based BIM standards, national BIM standards and protocols, CDE implementation, information management framework, ISO 19650, digital twins and connected assets, AI-driven information ecosystems. Globally, BIM has shifted from technology adoption to national infrastructure strategy and process. I'll keep moving. Process change from drawing to intelligent model. And I think that's where I'm glad most of you are architects here. And for us, I think architects, we have made that move some years back, I would say, maybe 15, 20 years back, where we moved from the CAD-based or the paper-based to the intelligent model now. So the process has shifted. And definitely we all understand intelligent models support informed decision-making. The workflow problem, where we are getting above top for inefficiency traps. What are they? A limited two-dimensional view, design in isolation. We are still at the phase where you all understand that there is no collaboration. We all work in fragment. Being an architect, there's not much for me to explain on that what is the design as architects have designed, and what is done to that model by the structures or MEP engineers, and by the time it is reached to the contractors, and the real construction is design divorced from reality. That is number 4 here. So we all need how important this is, the workflow problem we have currently here in our in our market. So ultimately, these challenges and solutions do not exist in silos, but rather intersect with one another. By working across all three areas, companies are taking charge for the future and preparing for success in an unpredicted world. I would like to invite here Eric from my office. He's engineer Eric Otieno. He's a civil and structure engineer and as a BIM specialist as well, and he will take you through just the fundamentals or to have a better understanding of BIM. And from there, we will take you through the work we have done in Kenya with National Construction Authority. We are the consultant who worked on bringing the BIM roadmap for the Kenyan construction industry, and it's coming to an end. We are just finalizing the final reports now, and we had conducted the validation workshop. So we have very many insights on how we conducted the survey and where we are as Kenya in terms of BIM. So Eric will take you through this. So thank you very much from my side.
Okay, thank you. We'll hear from Eric on this next.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Architect Ruchika, for the wonderful presentation. I'll take you through, and thank you so much, Architect Geoffrey, for taking us through the AI aspect, which of course do drive the industry. I'll move straight into my presentation. In just a minute, let me share my screen. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, thank you. So, having understood the global aspect of what is happening as far as the AI is concerned, and also as far as the AAC industry is concerned, we are going to look into what Architect Ruchika has talked about, that is the BIM. We've understood some of the challenges that are happening or that are existing in the industry, including the poor or inadequate coordination. More so when we talk of developing countries, some of which Kenya falls into. So we want to understand that some of these challenges, how can they be addressed? Could there be a solution? And that is where the BIM comes into. And I believe architects always take the lead in this, and we are always proud of the team. Let us look into the main definition of BIM, how the BIM works, or the process. First of all, we would like to clarify that BIM involves the process and technology, which also includes the professionals and the information. BIM is a collaborative process for intelligent project information across the entire life cycles. If you can see from the drawing or from the visual impression, we have all the entire team being brought together to work together in a collaborative environment. And that is what building information management or building information modeling always entails. It involves having an intelligent data that can be extracted throughout the life cycle of a project. Why are we championing, or why was the BIM introduced? One of the main reasons why BIM has been introduced or has evolved until the stage where it is now is to improve the collaboration within the AC industry, which includes the facility. BIM facilitates seamless communication among project stakeholders, and the collaboration aspect can be done internally or externally or in the cloud using the CDE, which is the common data environment. Another aspect, or one of the main challenges that are being faced, as I talk from the structural engineering aspect, is Kenya has been facing some of the collapse of the structures, unfortunately. And we realize that with the implementation of the BIM, we'll be able to improve the structural integrity and safety and reduce error. The other advantages will increase to maximize efficiency, reduce the cost and wastage, improve cost estimation, and a better end results. So those are some of the challenges, or those are some of the results that we are likely to get as far as the BIM implementation is concerned. BIM has the various timelines. That is, the BIM always entails from the design phase, whereby the design phase emphasizes collaboration, integrating all stakeholders' input for efficiency. And then you go to the construction stage until the operation phase. During the construction stage, BIM enhances real-time communication and project tracking for accuracy. While during the operation stage, BIM is being utilized for the maintenance and management. Also, when it's come to the handing over, you see nowadays we have the manual handing over, but with the power of the BIM and the COBI, we'll be able to provide all the details to the facility managers and scheduling a critical infrastructure or a critical structure, let's say for an hospital for maintenance, or for the evacuation process in case of an emergency, it becomes easier. So those are some of the reasons or some of the better timelines that we get from the BIM. And then BIM has different workflows. As I said, you start from the concept, whereby we bring everybody from on board. We have the geospatial and the geospatial team, including the land surveyors. And then we have the concept design being led by the architects, and then 3D modeling development, which here the architects takes the lead, and then followed by the structural engineers. Then the MEP teams comes in for the services, and then model coordination, and ensuring that the model of the design concept is clash-free and will be implemented fully on site. And then we go to costing and estimation. That's where we bring the QSs on board, whereby the intelligent model, the cost is being generated accurately from the intelligent model that has been modeled from the concept. So the costing will be as accurate as possible, and there will be no room for error. And then we have construction, simulation, and scheduling, whereby we talk of the 5D, 4D, 5D as well, 4 and 5D. And then we see how the simulation can be done in sequences and phases. And then we have the documentation, then the production of as built, and the digital twin as well. And then we have the operation and maintenance. Of course, we've seen all this process, and we'll see, or we've been taken through how the AI can optimize or can help us to achieve much about this one. Talking of the BIM workflow or the BIM workflow process, as I said, we have the land surveyor. As we said, BIM brings everyone on board, whereby we have the land surveyors capturing the data, actual size, and the precise coordinates that are being used for that project. And then we have the design and development teams led by the architects, and then the engineers comes in, and then we ensure that the federated model is free of the clash and it can be constructed. And then we have the construction, that is 4 and 5B, BIM, which involves the scheduling and costing estimation to optimize the model resource allocation. These ones, once we've run the clash or we have the federated model, we always ensure that there will be no costly reworks on site. And also the costs that are being produced by all the teams are according to the project. And then we have the handing over. That's where we have the COBI coming in, and also which will help the facility managers to track the BIM or to track the maintenance process that might be required. And then we understand BIM has various dimensions as far as BIM is concerned. We have the 3D, which is which involves the design and coordination. We have 4D, time and scheduling. We have 5D BIM, which is the cost management, and then 6D, that entails the sustainability, life cycles performance. 7D is the facility and asset management, 8D, and then 9D, we have the smart city and IoT, whereby we are being helped by the AI as well. We have different levels of development, that is LOD 100 to LOD 500, LOD 100 being the concept, and then LOD 500 being the as-built. We want to understand the global BIM adoption landscape such that we will be able to understand what is actually happening in Kenya as the current status. When we look into globally how the BIM has been adopted, when we talk of UK, which has been taking a lot of the leadership, that is, they are at the advanced level of the policy leadership. And then when we look into the Singapore, which of course the country dreams of moving towards, and I believe with the BIM, as an IC professional, that's the way in which we can advance to the level in which Singapore has achieved. They have advanced into integrating into an integrated BIM ecosystem, whereby they have national BIM standards and the integrated digital delivery strategy. They have the BIM-enabled regulatory approval ecosystem through the Connect X. And then we look into the Finland, which already achieved the life cycle maturity and their strong open standards adoption. When we look into the US, it's being driven by industry innovation, whereby there's a strong industry-driven BIM innovation and large-scale implementation in complex projects. That is just to give a bit of international surface. When we look into the local context or the regional context, into the Africa, one of the countries that has taken the lead is in South Africa, where the BIM adoption in the infrastructure and commercial development has been incorporated. There's a growing professional and institutional level for the BIM initiatives. Our neighbors are progressing well here. Ethiopia, they have the growing BIM uptake, and also they have already developed some of the roadmaps that is in the process. Now the question is, where does Kenya fall? As Kenyans, we always say, or our slogan is always that we are the pride of Africa, and where are we in terms of the BIM adoption? So I'll go into the current findings, just the same way Architect Ruchika told us that we've been working on BIM, national BIM adoption and implementation roadmap with the NCA, and I think I'll hand over to her to introduce that so that we understand locally, now that we've understood what BIM is and some of the progress of the journey that we've done. I think it will be in order for her to introduce to us what we did with the NCA so that we can present the findings to the team or the architects in the house to understand where we are and what it takes for us to move to fully active BIM. So I'll hand over to Architect Ruchika.
Thank you, Eric. You can just keep sharing your screen, which is fine because I'm on the road. So I just wanted to just give an idea that regarding the BIM, as I mentioned, that we are the BIM consultants and have been doing some work behind the scenes and with the government to increase capacity building. We have done some awareness programs with them on the BIM adoption, or how can we bring the BIM uptakes in Kenya. So the good thing happened is the NCA, National Construction Authority, appointed us as a consultant where they gave us an assignment to do the findings, to do the surveys. Findings were done that where we are as a country in terms of adoption, in terms of technology adoption, how our professionals or what requires in the capacity building side, what does it take, and even now we call it the roadmap. What are the steps to take to bring the BIM roadmap or to the Kenyan construction industry? So we have recently, I would not say we have 100% finished the project, but we are 90% here. And recently we had done the validation workshop where number of stakeholders from the construction industries were there, from the government, parastatals, academia sector. We have associations representing. We had construction industry companies were there. Sorry, anybody said anything? Can you hear me?
No. Yeah, we can
Okay.
hear you.
So, okay. So yeah, so we did that work, and I think in next few slides, Eric will present to you what we conducted, where we are as Kenya. as I mentioned, in terms of technology, in terms of adoptions, implementations, what the graph is saying here, and what are the path, what are the steps we need to take, the Kenyan construction industry or AEC industry to take to bring the BIM. As Eric mentioned about Singapore, that is where we would like to move to, as our head of state mentioned, and I think that is somewhere to look at. So Eric, I think you can take the next slides and explain the part we did, our research findings, and yeah, the roadmap to be shown. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Architect Ruchika. Now I'll take you through the findings that were done. Of course, the document is in public domain for each and everyone to review. And I believe most of people who are from the AAK, we have to say that thank you for your input as well during the data collection and also the views that help us to come through into the national BIM adoption and implementation roadmap. For the interest of time, we will just go into the brief summary to understand when we talked of the National BIM Adoption and Implementation Roadmap, what were the findings that were found as a nation where we are, now that we understood where other nations are globally and also in the local context, and also we'll understand what we need to or what it takes for us to achieve the National BIM Adoption Roadmap. So from the findings, from the research, it was a bit of research as well. From the findings, it was found that the Kenya National BIM Adoption and Implementation Roadmap Study reveals that the national BIM maturity status is at 40.33%. Kenya remains at an emergent but fragmented BIM environment, operating predominantly at BIM level 1, with LOD 100 to 200 outputs dominant, as we understood what the LOD was or is as far as the BIM is concerned, or as we talk of the terms of the BIM. And then the BIM usage remains largely at the design-centric, of course, being led by the architects, focusing on 3D visualization rather than data-rich lifecycle management. So these are some of these realities that are happening for us as a nation. Also, it was found out that human capital development and structured training remain the strongest drivers of BIM competency growth, taking into the account within the country and also a case study outside the countries. The professional institutions, including the NCA, AAK, EBK, ISK, BORAX, are beginning to champion BIM adoption frameworks such as ISO, and also creating more awareness as we have these webinars today for the professionals, for the AAK members. Some of the findings is that we need to understand the current BIM landscape, that include the current strength and also the current gap and challenges. It was understood that there is a growing awareness as part of the strength. There's an increase in university initiatives incorporating some of the BIM tools, that is, as we talk of the BIM, as we said, it's a process. It's not basically a technology only. It involves the process, the people, the technology, and the information management as well. So there's increasing university or higher education initiatives. Adoption is in selected large projects, mainly based on the externally funded projects, where BIM is one of the requirements for the architects or for the consultants on board to be on. And then there's a strong industry appetite for digitalization. And then professional bodies are beginning to champion for BIM advocacy. And then there's a growing interest in the international standards. While the current gaps include lack of national BIM standards, this one we are all aware as Kenyans that we don't have any standards as a nation. And some of the organizations always have their own internal standards to follow, mainly following the ISO standards. There is a limited policy and statutory frameworks, fragmented implementation approaches, skill and competency gaps exist. There is a resistance to change, more so for a group of people. There's absence of BIM-linked procurement and licensing requirements. And then there's a limited life cycle focus on BIM implementation. Now the question is, we understand that Kenya's challenge is not BIM awareness. Most people are basically aware, they have a basic awareness. The challenge is on the institutionalization and scaling of BIM through the standards, policies, and various adoptions. The current BIM uptake in Kenya, when we look into specifically per sector, we find that architects take a higher lead where the adoption is moderate adoption. When we go to the structural engineering team, then they are at a growing adoption stage. MEP are at emerging adoption stage, that is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing teams. And then we have the surveying and the geospatial, the quantity surveyors. They are in the early to emerging adoption. And then infrastructure, civil engineers purely, they are in growing adoption. Government projects are at early stage, rarely are they being implemented, but only in few. Then the contractors, when we talk of the construction and contractor, most of them are limited to growing adoption. FM, or the facility management team, is totally low. That means that BIM is not fully being utilized. As we said, it's being overviewed as a design-centric approach. Kenya currently has BIM users and isolated implementation initiatives, but not yet a fully integrated national BIM ecosystem. When we look into the Kenya National BIM Adoption and Implementation Roadmap, one of the, just a brief summary of the part is, it has a proposal of having understood the current nation and having done a case study in various BIM mature nations. What is required to be done is that for us to achieve the full BIM, or for us to move infrastructurally to the Singapore level, we need to follow a phased implementation. And there is a vision that we need to have a collaborative, digitally transformed build environment that delivers whole life asset value, having understood what BIM is, and with the mission to establish a strong public sector-led governance, technology integration, and capacity building frameworks that institutionalize collaborative BIM-based information management across the construction value chain. And then the roadmap objective is that the National BIM Adoption and Implementation Roadmap provides a structured and phased pathway for transitioning Kenya's IS industry from fragmented CAD-based practices towards an integrated, standard-driven, digitally enabled construction ecosystem that improves project delivery, transparency, efficiency, and life cycle value. When we talk of those phases, what do we mean for us to achieve it? It has been broken down into various phases, whereby the first phase will include the foundation and governance, which is likely to take 1 to 2 years. Within the foundation governance, it has a proposal of having established National BIM Policy and Steering Committee, develop Kenya BIM guidelines aligned with the ISO 19650 series, create BIM data exchange frameworks and collaborative procedure, launch awareness, pilot projects, and SME support initiatives, and also initiate structured BIM CPD and training programs. That is what has been proposed within the document for us to achieve the national BIM adoption. For the first phase, and then it will be followed by the phase 2, which include the institutionalization and scaling up, which will take about within the 3rd and up to the 5th year as projected. Within the second phase, we look forward as a nation to integrate BIM into public procurement frameworks, establish BIM competency units within government agencies, scale national BIM certification and accreditation programs, introduce CDE common data environment frameworks, expand BIM requirements for public and private projects. Within the third phase, it has been proposed that the Kenya need to go or to have digital transformation and life cycle integration, fully utilizing the benefits of what BIM entails. In this phase, it will involve introduce model-based approvals and compliance check, develop BIM-enabled digital twins for strategic assets, integrate BIM into asset management systems, implement sustainability and performance analytics, and position Kenya as a regional BIM hub. The roadmap will shift BIM adoption from isolated software implementation into a coordinated national digital delivery. And now, if we talk of the BIM, what it means to the architects, and also the issue of the AI that is being involved in the AS industry, we want to understand when we talk of the approval processes, the current approval processes versus the future approval processes, and what the potential future integration means for us as a nation and also as the ASC professionals. So currently we are working with the engineers and the architects provide the drawings and also the engineers. And then the submission is being done with the 2D drawings. I know there are some few countries that tried the online submissions, but there were some drawbacks. And then the manual review process. There's multiple revisions and resubmissions, which are costly, and paperwork also. There's a fragmented information exchange, and then there are delayed approvals. Just last year, we all understand, the architects and also the engineer, in some counties where the projects were being delayed for the approval. Some could be deliberate delay, but for other reasons. And then in future, once BIM will be fully enabled or will be fully implemented, having understood that everything will be brought into a transparent board of everything will be done in one space, we'll have the survey and the geospatial information being given in. And then we have the multidisciplinary BIM models, that is the architects, structure, MEP, infrastructure, QS teams, producing the various models, which will be uploaded within the common data environment and collaborative information management. And then we'll have the cloud submission, and then automated compliance, CODOL compliance, and AI-assisted validation. We'll have integrated multi-agency review and digital approvals. And then we'll have the construction and asset information delivery. And then at final stage, we'll have the facility management and digital twins. For this to happen, various boards has to be brought together. We'll have the county governments. We have our State Department of Public Works, NCA, AAK, EBK, ISK, BORAX, KPDA, and all the project stakeholders and assets owners need to be brought together on board for us to achieve full BIM implementation and ensure that our nation enjoys all the benefits that BIM is concerned with. Within the roadmap, there are some roles, so we'll just go through some of the few roles. When we look into the government will be responsible to develop national BIM policy, standards, and governance frameworks in collaboration with key experts and bodies. Mandate and drive BIM implementation in public sectors are some of the functions, and amongst others, private sector will be responsible to invest in BIM technologies, implementation process, and workflow capability, demonstrate BIM value through pilot projects and collaborative delivery models, amongst other functions. And then we'll have the professional bodies like AK. Their responsibility will include to align professional registration and CPD frameworks with BIM competency requirements, champion industry awareness, standards adoption, and knowledge sharing in a collaborative framework as well, which involves collaboration with the government as well. Technology, amongst other roles, technology partners will support interoperability BIM ecosystem. One of the challenges within as BIM tools is the interoperability aspect, and that role is supposed to be played by the technology partners by providing the interoperable system, open standards adoption, enable technology transfer, training, technical support, and innovation initiatives, amongst others. Client will define information requirements and BIM deliverables early in the projects and drive demand for life cycle focused BIM implementation, digital assets management, amongst others. And then when we look into the BIM plus AI, for those who have been using, when we look into BIM as a tool, for those, or as a technology, for those who have been using, let's talk of a tool of Revit 2027, you will realize that some of the AI aspect has been incorporated into as such a tool, and it's a great plus for architects, mainly also for the engineers as well, and all the AC teams. So our BIM is being integrated with the AI. We have automated code compliance. We have generative designs. We've been taken through that by architect. And we've seen predictive, we'll have the predictive analysis. We have quantity extraction, facility intelligence as well. And also just to add a part of the BIM evolution, we'll have the digital twin. We have the scan to BIM as well that is already existing into the industry. And then Kenyan ASC Vision by 2035, the nation envisions to have a common data environment, digital approval process that will cover for all the entire nation. A BIM mandate, digital twins, smart infrastructure, AI assisted decision making. So at this point, I'd like us to play a little video of 4 minutes just to understand what BIM is so that we can proceed to the next. And that will mark almost the end of our contribution or the end of our presentation, unless there are other questions.
Eric, I don't have video or I don't hear any, there's no sound. Maybe Brian can confirm?
Yes, there's no sound. I initially thought the video was on mute or it's a soundless
Yeah,
video.
Eric, it's not soundless. That's why I wondered.
Okay.
There's no sound,
Okay.
Eric.
I'm sorry, I'm getting sound from my end.
You are getting it.
There is no sound from your end?
Yes, there's no
No, we
sound.
cannot hear. Yeah, we cannot hear anything. I think in the favor of time now, because I understand that we are far behind the schedule here. Maybe we don't need to, Eric. We don't need to show the video. It's perfectly fine. We can share it later.
Yeah, that's fine. We can move on to the questions.
Yes.
Yes, so I think I will stop there. Just Architect Ruchika, you can have a closing remark from the last slide, and then call it. We leave the room for the Q&A.
Sure, that's fine, Eric. Thank you very much for this. And thank you, AAK, for having us on board. And we are really passionate about BIM. I know I can already see the comment in the chat box, which we will talk about the costs and role for the BIM implementation. How do we BIM penetration in the market? We will talk about it. But glad to be here. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Michael, and the AAK team. And we are here to serve you guys on any requirement. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Architect Ruchita and Eric. We'd like to welcome questions for both sessions. If you have any questions, you can feel free to post it in the chat from the previous discussions or from this discussion from HiCAD. I can see we already have 2 questions. There's one that was raised earlier for Geoffrey, and I see that Geoffrey has gone through it, so you can lead us through the first questions, Geoffrey.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Eric and Ruchika as well for the great presentation. Joseph has asked a really wonderful question. 2 questions. Is the prompt engineer the new junior architect, or will human designers retain the irreplaceable edge? I don't, it's an interesting conversation, and it's one that we're having in the office because 2 years ago, a lot of the conversation was centered around what do we need prompt engineers? But during the presentation, I don't know if people noticed, but I mentioned that nowadays your AI can interpret exactly what you're asking and then fine-tune it in a manner that is more easily interpretable for the model to understand. So the era of prompt engineering is essentially dead. And even at the end of the day, the question, I briefly gave this presentation in New York a couple of weeks ago, and a student asked a really interesting question. They asked, now that everyone has these tools and the barrier to entry is so low, how do we distinguish ourselves? I thought that was such a fantastic and really interesting question, and I think Joseph is also tapping into that as well. I think the creative spirit and the creative minds that, are in this chat and in our profession absolutely can never be replaced, not even by tools that are this tremendously powerful. And that's why I feel like if you start off with your own original ideas and then compound it with these powerful AI tools, you can be cutting a very, very new distinct edge in how you're producing your work. So I don't think it's a replacement. I think it's an enablement. And then just to answer the second question, can AI truly understand the genius loci, or will AI-generated architecture lead to a homogenized global aesthetic? Powerful question and absolutely really, really good. Genius Loci Towards the Phenomenology of Architecture, Christian Norberg-Schulz. Really wonderful book, highly recommend. I don't think AI fully captures genius loci. And there's so many nuances to what genius loci is, and Christian Norberg-Schulz talks a lot about that. I think at the end of the day, I'll just go back to essentially what I said, and this is also leading up to the second portion of that question. Will AI-generated architecture lead to a homogenized global aesthetic? I think it is very possible, especially now that the barrier to entry is very low. With some of the tools I showed you, I mean, it's literally just a matter of getting images and then getting output, or going from text to output, literally within a matter of seconds. So if everyone has these same tools, I mean, on the call, I think we've had around 100 people. If we had 100 people prompting, and the prompts are almost exactly the same because the AI is essentially rewriting your prompts to make it more acceptable for the model, then the output is essentially likely to be the same. So now the thing that helps us distinguish ourselves from one another and bring out new and unique styles is now what I was referring to at the start. Starting off with things that are inherently yours, like for example, your sketches. The sketches are yours. They're an expression of your style and your technique and your way of thinking. So if you have that expression of self and then compound it with the power of AI tools, I mean, you can carve out a tremendously powerful and interesting niche.
Yes, and also to build on that, if you don't have the sketch, and you have a really nice descriptive language. Do you think language can replace the sketch? Because we have now the text to image models. Can they really depict your ideas as you are thinking them? And instead of using a sketch, we'll use language.
Yeah. Oh, no, powerful question and really interesting. And, I mean, I don't know if people know of a scientist, a research scientist called Jan LeCun. Jan LeCun is a pioneer in AI, and he has been sharply critical of large language models, particularly because of exactly what you've mentioned, that there are limitations to language. Language is used as an encodement of knowledge, but there is a lot of knowledge that is not necessarily encoded in language when you think about it. And one example he likes to use is the folding arm. When somebody is folding their arm like that, there is so much that's happened when somebody has done that is not necessarily encoded in language.
Yeah.
So it leaves a lot of gaps. But within the next couple of years, there are some interesting research papers that have come out that are talking about a new kind of model called the world model. The world model is meant to absorb information the way a human being would. Yeah. A human being, when you're navigating through the world as an architect or as a designer, you're absorbing information holistically, not just through text. You're listening to sounds, you're looking at buildings, you're looking at the floor, you're experiencing it with touch, you're embracing a lot of different things. So I think, yeah, just to answer your point, yeah, I think the text is still very, very limiting.
Yeah. We have another question. There's one on material specification. How could an AI solution look like when it comes to sourcing for the specified materials? That is from Onsarigo. So the question is on material specifications, how could an AI solution look like when it comes to sourcing for the specified materials? I don't know if you got that.
I presume that is for Eric and Ruchika, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, I didn't really understand it, but I think he's talking about the
Even, sorry,
specifications.
yes, sorry, even I'm not getting that question very correctly, and I thought it's for Joffrey. Sorry.
Rigo, if you're still available, it'll be wonderful if you can voice it out.
And then we have another for the BIM team from HiCAD. Do you think that cost is a hindrance to BIM penetration into the Kenyan AC market?
Yes, definitely. I think cost is one of the most significant hindrance for the BIM penetration in our Kenyan construction sector. Definitely the cost of the tools, the BIM tools, the softwares, definitely it's very high for our economy, for our market. It needs hardware upgrades, trainings, all these I can completely. But as we submitted, as we are working on the report, so one of the point NCA has mentioned there that if it goes through to the level where we are putting the policies for the BIM, there is one point they have taken is they would talk to the vendors or the software, the technology companies basically, or working with the government, whether it can be tax-free or to bring something like that in our nation. They definitely need to think of the cost implications. How do we implement BIM if the tools are super expensive? And of course, then it needs the training cost. It needs the hardware upgrades required, quite a number of things. So definitely it's a big hindrance, and it has NCA and the government is looking at that how to make it. They are looking at the tax issue. They are looking at to start maybe from just the public projects to implement, start with BIM. These are the factors that it's a big hindrance. But if we look at the IFC, we can for open BIM, we can still collaborate through IFC and other tools. Oh, sorry, did you?
Yeah, just a bit, but it's okay. Now you're clear.
Okay. Yeah, so definitely, as I was mentioning, the cost is a big hindrance, and as I mentioned that as we are working on this, working with NCA on this report, and if it reaches to the policy level, then the government is looking at few options. Definitely, they would like to start first with the public projects to implement. Secondly, they are looking to talk to the technology providers. They are looking at the tax side, that can we make it tax exempted and things like that. Because it's everybody's concerns. Even some of our government entities are using these, and it is very difficult even for them. So think about the individuals here, how difficult it can be to have the expensive technology, these tools we have. As I don't know, where did you disconnect me? So I hope I'm not repeating here about the hardware upgrades, about the trainings. So definitely cost is a hindrance for the BIM penetration in our construction industry. But we can still explore on the open BIM side on how do we still exchange the files through IFCs. So what is in our control, or what we can do, we should do, because that is the way forward, and not only look at the cost, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like to welcome any more questions. And if they're not, I would like to give thank you remarks to the presenters, for Geoffrey for taking your time to give us a wonderful presentation, and for the HiCAD team, Architect Ruchita and Eric, we thank you for the wonderful presentations, and we hope for more presentations in the future. So if there's no more questions, we'd like to end today's session and welcome you more to future AK webinars. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you everyone as well. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn. It'll be wonderful to get your feedback and your comments and questions. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll get the presentations. They'll be shared later. But yeah, that's it for today.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, AK team, Geoffrey. Wonderful presentation. And thanks to everyone here for joining in.
Thank you, Ruchika. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.